The way his hand lingered on my niece's lower back made my blood turn to ice. It wasn't a friendly pat. It wasn't a congratulatory gesture. It was possession, disguised as professional courtesy under the dimmed lights of the hotel ballroom. I watched Rachel's body go rigid, her champagne glass trembling slightly in her hand. She forced a smile, the kind I'd seen on too many faces during my 30 years as a detective. The smile that says, "I'm fine," when everything inside is screaming. But what happened next is what made me reach for my phone. Patricia Chen, the company's HR director, stood less than 10 feet away. She saw it. I know she did because our eyes met for a split second. And then she turned away, lifted her own glass, and walked toward the buffet table as if nothing had happened. As if my niece wasn't freezing under that man's touch. As if this was just another Tuesday night at Morrison Tech Solutions. I pulled out my phone and opened a contact I hadn't used since I retired 2 years ago. My finger hovered over the call button while I watched David Morrison lean down to whisper something in Rachel's ear. She stepped back, but he followed. The music was loud, the crowd thick with celebration. The company had just closed its biggest deal of the year. Everyone was too drunk on success and champagne to notice what I was seeing. I made the call. "Bill," I said quietly, "it's James Crawford. I need you to do something for me tonight. Right now." My former partner's voice came through, alert despite the late hour. I told him where I was, what I'd seen, and what I needed. When I hung up, David Morrison was still talking to my niece, his hand now on her shoulder. She was nodding, backing away slowly toward the exit. I moved through the crowd, positioning myself between them. "Rachel," I said, my voice cutting through the music, "your aunt called. Family emergency. We need to go." Morrison's hand dropped. His face showed annoyance for a fraction of a second before sliding into professional concern. "Oh no! Is everything all right?" "We'll manage," I replied, not looking at him. I took Rachel's elbow gently and guided her toward the door. I felt his eyes on us the entire way out. In the parking lot, under the harsh fluorescent lights, Rachel finally broke. Her shoulders shook, but she didn't cry. "Uncle James, I'm sorry. I know you came all the way here for the awards ceremony, and now—" "There's no emergency at home," I interrupted. I lied. She looked up at me, confused. I saw what he did, and I saw Patricia Chen pretend she didn't. I kept my voice steady, the way I used to when interviewing witnesses. "This isn't the first time, is it?" The silence that followed told me everything. Rachel leaned against my car, staring at the concrete. "Uncle James, it's complicated. I need this job. I worked so hard to get here. If I say something, if I make waves—" "How long?" I asked. 6 months, she whispered. "Maybe more." It started small. Comments about my appearance. Standing too close. Then he started finding reasons to keep me late at the office. Alone. Her voice cracked. "Last month, he cornered me in the supply room. He said if I wanted the promotion I'd been working toward, I needed to be more flexible." I felt something old and familiar rise in my chest. That cold rage that used to fuel my investigations. The kind that made me relentless when I knew someone was being hurt and no one was listening. "Did you report it?" "To Patricia. 3 times. Rachel's laugh was bitter. She said I was misinterpreting professional mentorship. That David is passionate about developing his team. That I should be grateful he's taking such interest in my career growth. She looked at me with hollow eyes. The last time I went to her, she said that if I kept making unfounded accusations, it might affect my performance reviews. The parking lot seemed to tilt. This wasn't just one man abusing his power. This was a system built to protect him. "Rachel," I said carefully, "I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She nodded slowly. "Good. Because what I did tonight, that phone call, it's just the beginning. But I need to know everything. Not here. Tomorrow. Can you come to my house tomorrow morning? I have work. Call in sick." She hesitated, then nodded again. I drove her home in silence, watching the city lights blur past. When I dropped her off at her apartment building, she grabbed my hand. "Uncle James, please don't make this worse. I can handle it. I just need to keep my head down until—" "Until what?" I interrupted gently. "Until he stops? Men like David Morrison don't stop, Rachel. They escalate. And women like Patricia Chen? I shook my head. They're the reason men like him get away with it for so long. She got out of the car without another word. I watched her walk inside, shoulders hunched, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. She used to be fearless. As a kid, she'd climb the tallest trees, race her bike down the steepest hills, never backing down from a challenge. When did she learn to make herself small? I drove home with my jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. At 63, I thought I was done with this. Done with predators and enablers. Done with watching people suffer because someone else decided they had the right to take what they wanted. But retirement doesn't erase 30 years of instinct. And family? Family is everything. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a notepad, writing down everything Rachel had told me. Time, dates, witnesses. I knew this dance. I'd choreographed it 100 times before, just usually from the other side of the badge. Bill called me back at 11. I made some calls, he said. Morrison Tech Solutions. David Morrison, VP of Marketing. 45 years old, married, 2 kids. Been with the company 8 years. Promoted fast. Very profitable division under his leadership. What else? A pause. Jim, I pulled in a favor with someone at the State Labor Board. There have been 2 informal complaints filed against Morrison in the past 3 years. Both women, both withdrawn before any investigation could proceed. My pen stopped moving. Withdrawn or pressured to withdraw? Reading between the lines? Pressured. One woman left the company 2 months after filing. The other transferred to the Boston office. And Patricia Chen, HR director for 6 years. Before that, she was at Morrison's previous company, also in HR. She moved when he moved. I sat back in my chair. She's not just enabling him. She's part of the machine. Looks that way. Jim, what are you planning? Justice, I said. The kind that doesn't get withdrawn or buried or transferred to Boston. I hung up and made a list. Tomorrow, I would start building a case. Not for the police, not for a courtroom, not yet. First, I needed to know how deep this went. How many women? How long? How much Patricia Chen had actively covered up versus passively ignored. Rachel arrived at my house at 8 in the morning. She looked like she hadn't slept. I made coffee, strong and black, the way my late wife used to make it. We sat in the kitchen while morning light filtered through the windows, and I asked her to tell me everything from the beginning. It started at the company retreat last year, she began. We were at this resort in Colorado. Team building exercises, that kind of thing. David gave me a really good performance review during the day. That night at the bar, he bought me a drink, said I had real potential, that he saw me going far in the company. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. I was excited. I'd been working there 2 years, and this was the first time a VP had really noticed my work. What happened? He kept buying drinks, for everyone at first, then just for me. He started talking about his divorce, how his wife didn't understand the demands of his career, how lonely it was at the top. She laughed without humor. I've heard that line before. I know what it means. So I finished my drink and said I was going to bed. He offered to walk me to my room. My hands tightened around my own mug. I said no, but he followed me anyway, kept talking the whole way. When we got to my door, he put his hand on my waist. Said I looked beautiful. Said we could talk more inside. Rachel's voice went flat. I said I was tired. He pushed closer. I could smell the alcohol on him. Then his phone rang. His wife. He answered it right there in the hallway, his hand still on my waist, and talked to her like nothing was happening. Did you tell anyone? The next day, I mentioned it to Patricia. Casual, you know? Like, hey, something awkward happened. She said David was probably just being friendly, that I might have misread the situation because of the drinks. She said in corporate culture, it's important to not mistake professional networking for something inappropriate. The way Rachel said it, I could tell she was quoting directly. How many times had Patricia Chen used those exact words? It got worse after that, Rachel continued. He started finding reasons to call me into his office, always late in the day when most people had left. He'd sit too close during meetings, touch my arm, my shoulder. Once, He tucked my hair behind my ear during a presentation review. Said I looked distracted. She met my eyes. Uncle James, I was distracted because I was trying to figure out how to get away from him without losing my job. The supply room incident. Tell me about that. She took a breath. I was getting printer paper. He came in and locked the door. Said he wanted to talk privately about my promotion. I was up for senior marketing manager. I'd been working toward it for a year. He said the decision was between me and another candidate, but he could influence it. She paused. Then he kissed me, pushed me against the supply shelves. I shoved him back and told him to stop. He laughed, said I was sending mixed signals, that I'd been flirting with him for months. Mixed signals, I repeated, tasting the bitterness of that excuse. I reported it to Patricia that same day. She called us both into her office, together, made me repeat everything while David sat there shaking his head, looking hurt. He said I'd been the one pursuing him, that he was trying to let me down gently, and now I was retaliating by making false accusations. Rachel's voice shook with anger now, not fear. Patricia said that without proof, she couldn't take action on, he said. She said situations. She suggested we both move forward professionally and keep our interactions appropriate. And the promotion went to someone else. Someone who started 3 months after me and had half my performance metrics. I stood up and walked to the window, watching birds gather at the feeder my wife had installed years ago. Simple creatures with simple needs. Food, shelter, safety. Rachel deserved the same basic dignity. Uncle James, she said quietly behind me. Last week, he told me I needed to accompany him on a business trip to Chicago. 3 days. Separate hotel rooms, he said, but he made it very clear what he expected to happen there. What did you do? I said I had a family obligation. He said if I couldn't prioritize the company, maybe I wasn't cut out for advancement. That's when I asked my mom if you'd come to the awards dinner. I thought if you were there, if someone was watching, maybe he'd. She trailed off. Maybe he'd behave. I finished. But he didn't. No. He never does when he thinks no one's really paying attention. I turned back to her. Rachel, I need to ask you something important. Would you be willing to wear a wire? Her eyes widened. You mean record him? I mean gather evidence. Real evidence. The kind Patricia Chen can't dismiss, as he said, she said. I sat back down across from her. I have contacts. People I worked with for 30 years. We can get you a small recorder. Something he'd never notice. The next time he calls you into his office, the next time he makes an inappropriate comment or touch, we'll have proof. That's legal? In this state, yes. Single-party consent for recording. If you're part of the conversation, you can record it. She bit her lip, thinking. What if he finds it? He won't. These devices are professional grade, designed for undercover operations. I've used them myself. I reached across and took her hand. But I won't push you. This is your decision. If you want to just walk away, find another job, I'll support you in that too. Other women? She said suddenly. You said there were other complaints. 2 that made it into informal records. But Bill thinks there might be more who never reported at all. Rachel's jaw set in a way that reminded me of her grandmother, my sister. That same stubborn determination. If I do this, if I record him, what happens next? We build a case, a real one, not just against David Morrison, but against Patricia Chen and anyone else at that company who knew what was happening and did nothing. Then we take it to someone who will actually do something about it. Like who? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Rachel, in 30 years of police work, I made a lot of friends. Some of them are lawyers now. Some work for the state attorney general's office. One of them specializes in employment law and workplace harassment cases. She's won settlements that bankrupted companies smaller than Morrison Tech. Rachel stood up and walked to the window where I'd been standing. She was quiet for a long time, watching those same birds. I'm scared, she finally admitted. Good. Fear means you understand the risks. But let me tell you what I learned in 3 decades of putting criminals away. Bullies rely on silence. Every single one. The moment their victims start talking, start documenting, start fighting back, that's when they panic. And panic makes people stupid. She turned to look at me. You really think we can do this? I know we can. But more importantly, I think you need to. Not for me. Not for justice in some abstract sense. For you. So you can look at yourself and know you didn't let him win. She took a deep breath, then nodded. Okay, let's do it. The next 3 days were careful preparation. Bill got me a high-quality digital recorder, small enough to clip inside a jacket lining or slip into a pocket. I taught Rachel how to use it, how to speak clearly without being obvious, how to position herself so the audio would be clean. We practiced conversations, me playing the role of Morrison, pushing boundaries, while she learned to respond in ways that would make his intentions crystal clear on tape. If he touches you, I instructed, say it out loud. David, please remove your hand from my waist. Or I'm uncomfortable with you standing this close. Make his actions explicit in your words. Won't that seem weird? Maybe. But it creates an undeniable record. No misinterpretation possible. On the 4th day, Rachel went back to work. I sat in my house, staring at my phone, waiting. She'd promised to text me a simple code if she got an opportunity to record him. A thumbs-up emoji meant she was going into a private meeting. A house emoji meant she was safe and had nothing to report. The thumbs-up came at 2:30 in the afternoon. My heart rate picked up. I'd felt this before, that pre-arrest tension, waiting for a wire to come through, hoping the suspect would say enough to hang himself. I'd never been on this side of it, though. Never had someone I loved in potential danger. 45 minutes passed. Then the house emoji appeared. I called her immediately. You okay? I'm okay. I got it. Her voice was tight but triumphant. He called me in to discuss the Chicago trip again. Said he'd rescheduled it for next month and I needed to commit. Then she paused. Uncle James, he put his hand on my knee, moved it up my thigh. I said clearly, David, I need you to remove your hand. This is inappropriate. He said I was overreacting, that he was just being friendly. Kept his hand there for another 10 seconds before I stood up. Rage burned through me, but I kept my voice level. Is it on the recording? Every word, every second. Good girl. Come straight to my house after work. Don't talk to anyone. Don't tell anyone what you did. She arrived at 6 with the recorder in her purse. We sat at my kitchen table and listened to it together. David Morrison's voice came through clear as a bell, the casual tone as he discussed the business trip, the shift in his voice when he touched her, Rachel's firm statement of discomfort, his dismissive laugh, and the words, "You're overreacting," followed by the sound of fabric rustling as she stood up quickly. This is it, I said. This is exactly what we need. But Rachel wasn't smiling. It's not enough, is it? One recording. He'll say it was a misunderstanding. Patricia will back him up. She was right. One incident would be dismissed. We needed more. We needed a pattern. Then we keep going, I said. Can you do it again? She looked at the recorder, then at me. How many times do I have to let him touch me before someone believes me? The question hung in the air, like smoke. I didn't have a good answer. We both knew the truth. In cases like this, one woman's word was never enough. We needed multiple incidents, multiple pieces of evidence, enough to make denial impossible. I'll wear it every day, Rachel said finally. Every single day until we have enough. Over the next 2 weeks, Rachel recorded 7 more interactions. David commenting on her appearance in a meeting, his words just inappropriate enough to be unmistakable. David finding reasons to touch her shoulder, her arm, her back. David making innuendos about after-work drinks and hotel rooms. Patricia Chen walking past during one incident, saying nothing. We had hours of audio, but I wanted more. I wanted to know if there were other women. Bill came through again. Found something, he said when he called. Jennifer Walsh worked at Morrison Tech 3 years ago. Left suddenly. No forwarding contact in her employment file, but I tracked her down in Oregon. Will she talk? I don't know, but I got her number. I called Jennifer Walsh that evening. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice cautious when I explained who I was and why I was calling. I don't want to talk about that place. she said immediately. I understand, but my niece is going through something similar right now, and I think, is it David? The way she said his name, loaded with venom, told me everything. Yes. A long silence. Then, he did it to me too, for months. I reported it 5 times. 5. Patricia Chen told me I was being dramatic, that David was just old school in his management style. When I threatened to go over her head to the CEO, she started writing me up for minor infractions, late to meetings by 2 minutes, typos in emails. She built a performance file against me until I couldn't take it anymore and quit. Would you be willing to give a statement about what happened? Who would care? I already tried. No one believed me. I believe you, I said. And I have evidence now. Recordings, documentation. I have a lawyer ready to take this case. But we need to show this wasn't just one incident with one woman. We need your voice. Another silence. Longer this time. If I do this, can you promise it won't just disappear again? I can't promise anything about the outcome, I said honestly. But I can promise we won't let it disappear. Not this time. Give me your email. I'll send you everything I kept. Emails, text messages, my contemporaneous notes. I documented everything even though no one cared. 2 days later, my inbox contained a file folder from Jennifer Walsh. Dozens of documents. Emails from David Morrison that started professional and gradually became suggestive. Text messages sent late at night. Performance reviews from Patricia Chen that suddenly became scathing after Jennifer reported the harassment. It was a roadmap of retaliation. I forwarded everything to Sarah Martinez, the employment lawyer Bill had connected me with. She called me within an hour. James, this is worse than I thought. And I thought it was bad. Her voice was sharp, excited in the way prosecutors get when they know they have a winning case. With your niece's recordings plus Jennifer Walsh's documentation, we have a pattern of harassment and systematic retaliation. If we can find one more woman, I'll find her, I interrupted. Bill helped me track down the second woman who'd filed an informal complaint, Madison Brooks. She now worked in Boston but agreed to a phone call. Her story was nearly identical to Jennifer's and Rachel's. Different details, same structure. David Morrison pursuing, Patricia Chen dismissing, the company protecting its VP while the victim was pushed out. I'm sorry I withdrew my complaint, Madison said, her voice thick with old guilt. I was 24. It was my first corporate job. They made me feel like I was crazy, like I was the problem. You weren't the problem, I told her. You were never the problem. Sarah Martinez built the case like a fortress. 3 victims, spanning 4 years. Hours of recorded evidence, email trails, text messages, performance reviews that showed clear retaliation. Witness statements from coworkers who'd seen inappropriate behavior but were too afraid to speak up alone. She filed a joint civil lawsuit against David Morrison, Patricia Chen, and Morrison Tech Solutions for sexual harassment, hostile work environment, retaliation, and negligent retention of a known harasser. The company was served on a Wednesday morning. Rachel called me from her car in the parking lot, her voice shaking. David was escorted out by security an hour ago. So was Patricia. The CEO just sent a company-wide email about serious allegations and an ongoing investigation. Uncle James, everyone knows. Everyone's talking about it. Are you okay? I don't know. People keep staring at me. Some won't look at me at all. One woman from accounting stopped me in the hallway and said, "Thank you." Then she started crying. I closed my eyes. More victims. I think so. I think there are a lot more. She was right. By the end of the week, 6 more women had come forward with their own stories. The lawsuit expanded. Sarah Martinez filed an amended complaint and added a demand for punitive damages and a full company audit of HR practices. The company's lawyers tried to settle immediately, offering Rachel 6 months' salary and a non-disclosure agreement. Sarah laughed when she told me about it. I told them we'd see them in court. This isn't about money. Well, it is. But it's more about making sure this never happens again to anyone at that company. David Morrison's lawyer called me personally, which was unusual. He tried the friendly approach first. Detective Crawford, I understand you're trying to help your niece, But this situation has gotten out of hand. David made some mistakes. Yes. Poor judgment. But he's not a criminal. His career, his family, his victims' careers, I interrupted. Their mental health, their sense of safety. What about that? We're prepared to offer substantial compensation. We're prepared to expose everything. Every email, every text message, every incident documented over 4 years. How do you think that plays in court? Better yet, how does it play in the press? He hung up shortly after. The news broke 2 days later. Local reporter picked it up first, then regional, then national. Tech VP accused of years-long pattern of sexual harassment. HR director allegedly covered up multiple complaints. Company faces lawsuit from 9 women. The public attention changed everything. The CEO released a statement announcing David Morrison and Patricia Chen were terminated. The company hired an external firm to investigate their HR practices. They offered mandatory harassment training for all employees and a confidential hotline for reporting concerns. It wasn't enough. Sarah pushed harder. Training doesn't undo trauma. A hotline doesn't compensate for lost wages and careers. We want structural changes. We want accountability. And yes, we want enough money that every company in this industry thinks twice before letting this happen. The case went to mediation. I sat in the back of the room while Sarah laid out our evidence. Rachel testified, her voice steady as she described each incident. Jennifer and Madison joined via video call, adding their voices. The mediator, a retired judge, looked grimmer with each passing hour. The company settled for $2.3 million, split among the 9 victims, with the largest portions going to Rachel, Jennifer, and Madison. They also agreed to a consent decree, independent oversight of their HR department for 5 years, mandatory quarterly training, a victims' compensation fund, and a public apology. David Morrison and Patricia Chen settled separately, personal assets liquidated to pay their shares. Morrison's wife filed for divorce during the proceedings. Chen lost her HR certification and was barred from working in HR in the state. But the money, the settlements, the corporate reforms, none of that was the moment that mattered most to me. It was 3 months after everything ended. Rachel called and asked me to meet her for coffee. She arrived looking different, lighter. She sat across from me and said, "I got a job offer. Director of marketing at a smaller company." They knew about the lawsuit. The CEO said anyone brave enough to stand up to harassment is exactly the kind of person she wants leading her team. "Are you going to take it?" "Yes." "And Uncle James? I'm going to make sure that company has real policies, real protection, real consequences, because I know what it feels like to be unprotected." I reached across and squeezed her hand. "Your grandmother would be proud." "I know I am." She smiled, and for the first time in months, it reached her eyes. "I keep thinking about something you said, about bullies relying on silence. I'm not silent anymore. None of us are." The following week, I got a letter from Jennifer Walsh. She'd written it by hand, which felt important somehow. "Detective Crawford," it began. "I spent 3 years thinking I was the problem, that I was weak for not fighting harder. But you showed me I wasn't alone. You showed me my voice mattered. I just wanted to say thank you. You didn't have to help us, but you did. And because you did, I can finally look at myself in the mirror again." I kept that letter on my refrigerator, held by a magnet my wife had bought years ago. Every morning, I'd see it while making coffee. A reminder that retirement didn't mean I stopped fighting for what was right. It just meant I got to choose my battles. And family? Family was always worth fighting for. Morrison Tech Solutions implemented every reform in the consent decree. I know because Rachel stayed in touch with former coworkers. The new HR director, a woman named Angela Roberts, who'd built her career on corporate ethics, cleaned house. She fired 3 managers who'd known about Morrison's behavior and said nothing. She established a real reporting system with external oversight. She made it clear that retaliation would mean immediate termination, no exceptions. David Morrison never worked in corporate America again. His name became poison in the industry. Patricia Chen moved to a different state and took a job as a medical office administrator, far from HR. Their fall wasn't just professional, it was complete. But the real victory wasn't their punishment. It was watching Rachel rebuild herself, watching her confidence return. Seeing her laugh without that edge of fear I'd noticed that night in the parking lot. She started mentoring younger women in the industry, teaching them to recognize warning signs and speak up early. A year after the settlement, Rachel organized a panel discussion at a local university. Surviving workplace harassment, a conversation. She invited Jennifer and Madison. They talked to a room full of students and young professionals about their experiences, their fight, their recovery. I sat in the back, listening to my niece speak with authority and compassion about her trauma. When the Q&A started, a young woman raised her hand. "How did you find the courage to come forward? When you knew it would be so hard?" Rachel thought for a moment. "I didn't find courage. Someone gave it to me. My uncle showed me that silence was hurting me more than speaking up could. He showed me I deserved to be believed. Once I knew that, really knew it, everything else followed." She caught my eye across the room and smiled. I nodded back, throat tight. After the panel, several women approached Rachel privately. I watched them share hushed conversations, exchange contact information, planting seeds. That's what we'd done, planted seeds that would grow into more voices, more truth, more refusal to accept silence as the price of survival. Before I left that night, a young man stopped me in the hallway. "Detective Crawford? I'm a journalism student. I've been following your niece's case. Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "You were retired when this happened. You could have told her to just quit, find another job. Why did you do all this instead?" I considered the question, because I spent 30 years putting criminals in prison. Men who hurt people, who thought they were untouchable. When I saw that man put his hands on my niece, when I saw that HR director turn away and pretend she didn't see, I recognized it. The same arrogance, the same impunity, just wearing a suit instead of a mask. I paused, and I realized that retirement didn't mean I stopped being a detective. It just meant I got to choose who I investigated. Family seemed like a good place to start. He scribbled notes, then looked up. "Your niece said you made one phone call that night at the company dinner. What was that call?" I smiled. "I called my old partner, asked him to pull David Morrison's record. See what was hidden. That's the thing about predators. They always leave trails. You just have to know where to look. And after 30 years, I know where to look. These days, I'm still retired. Still living in the same house. Still feeding the birds every morning. Still missing my wife. But I'm not idle. Rachel sends me names sometimes. Women who need help, who don't know where to turn, who think they're alone. I make calls. I pull threads. I find the trails. Last month, I helped a friend's daughter document harassment at a law firm. 2 weeks ago, I connected a young teacher with an attorney after her principal retaliated for reporting assault by another teacher. The fight doesn't end. It just takes different shapes. I'm 63 years old. My knees hurt when it rains. I need reading glasses. I keep losing. I fall asleep during evening news. But when my phone rings and someone needs help, I'm still that detective who doesn't quit. Still that uncle who will burn down anyone who touches his family. Still the man who believes that justice delayed is better than justice denied. Rachel visits every Sunday now. We have coffee, we talk. Sometimes about work, sometimes about her new relationship with a kind man who makes her laugh. Sometimes about nothing important at all. But always underneath, there's this understanding between us. We fought something dark together and won. Not perfectly, not without scars, but we won. And on the days when I doubt whether anything I did mattered, when I wonder if we just put bandages on a broken system, I remember that letter from Jennifer. I remember the young women at that panel. I remember Rachel's smile that day in the coffee shop when she told me about her new job. We didn't fix everything. We can't. But we fixed something. We turned silence into voice, fear into action, victimhood into survival. That's enough. It has to be enough. Because tomorrow, my phone might ring again, and I'll be ready. I'm always ready.